Hey, ladies of the Video Confidence Secrets Facebook community, I'm Janie Peters, and as always, coming to you live 10 a.m. PDT time to chat things, video and confidence and all this crap that gets in the way of that in growing our businesses and growing our know, like, trust factor. And every once in a while, I've got someone to chat with, and I do today, and I'm so excited to be introducing Tina Valiant. And it's really funny because when I first met Tina, I was interviewing her on a podcast that I was doing with two colleagues of mine. I think it was a few years ago. But before I bring her into the studio, I want to read her awesome bio here because she's kind of like wearing so many different hats. So whether you're looking to take your real estate business to the next level of success, or whether you're looking to challenge yourself to grow personally, award-winning real estate agent, author, speaker, real estate coach, and nationally recognized real estate team leader, Tina Valiant can help you reach the next level of success. With hundreds of real estate transactions under her belt, plus 20 years experience in the sales and real estate, Tina is known for her sales mastery and ability to produce award-winning agents. With the 2021 release of a brand new book, super cool. It's not called Super Cool. We'll talk about the book. It's written to help women looking for freedom and fulfillment, stepping into their power. Tina is rapidly becoming an emerging voice for women everywhere. Tina, come into the studio. Hey, Tina! Welcome. Oh my gosh. Thank you for being here. Now I can take my readers off and look at you. How are you? Welcome.
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was just talking about how, as I was introducing you, about how we keep meeting like this, right? Like I'm interviewing you. I'm like, we need to actually meet in other ways, but I'm so excited because you are just kind of like the epitomizing everything that I am working to build with women in this community. And that's owning your power and stepping into it, as uncomfortable as that is, because it's not. So, you wanted to start with sharing what that process has been like for you. And so I want to turn it over to you so you can talk about that and your vulnerabilities that have shown up on this journey of yours.
Well, I've been in a few uncomfortable situations most recently. And let's be real, as women, we're totally critical of ourselves. When we see ourselves on video, when we hear our voice, we're always looking at, oh, my hair wasn't good, my face looked fat, I don't like my outfit, whatever the case may be. And it stops us dead in our tracks. And this year, especially, I've had to get uncomfortable. And a saying that we always have on my team is, I'm going to first make you uncomfortable before I make you successful. And I have had to be the one uncomfortable this year.
You gotta show the way, right? I mean, you gotta be the one, like, you're leading them. So talk about that if you want to. I mean, what were those things that showed up recently that were uncomfortable?
Well, I hate photos of myself. And I had to go meet with a world-renowned photographer that my publisher set up for me. And it was a super fun experience, but I was more nervous than anything. You can put me on a stage of 2,000 people in front of me and I have no problem. You put me in a position where I'm individualized and you have to take pictures of me or video of me, and I just freeze. I am scared to death. Literally, it was a couple of shots of tequila before we really got going. And he took 2,000 photos. He just kept going. And he even moved locations with us. And it was supposed to be like 2 hours, but he's like, no, we're in a groove. We're just going to keep going. Do you have anywhere to be? And he just kept going. And then you have to narrow it down.
I know, because I've done the same thing. You're like, oh, this is great. I have so many photos to choose from. And that is agonizing, right? Because they will all look so similar, but there's one that's just better. And I think for me, I'm the same way. Totally 100% agree with you about the still photo versus just showing up and being who I am and just owning my personality, is that it comes down to appearance. I feel like you're trying to capture your entire personality and your soul and everything in a photo. And that's, for me, is that what shows up for you too? It's like, how do you do that in a still?
Well, and not only that, I mean, I am so critical of my body, of my face, of all of these different things. I mean, and I talk about this, I talk about it in the book, I talk about it in another podcast that I do where, growing up, I was awkward and I was the ugly duckling and I was incredibly shy and I was incredibly sweet. And I really felt like the ugly duckling. I really did. And I didn't start owning that maybe I was cute until I moved to Florida. And I lived in the skinniest state, Colorado, and I moved to Florida, and because I'm a thick girl. And it was like eye-opening that other people might actually find my body attractive. It was very, very different for me. But I've had to really overcome those fears of my appearance, how I look, am I good enough to speak? And my coach actually had to walk with me through that, because I went to him one day and I'm like, first of all, why do people care what I have to say? And number two, I don't really have the look to be on stage and all of these things because I'm not a twig girl. And he was like, are you crazy? He's like, people want to know what you have to say because you're just point blank. That's number one. Number two, you're great the way you are physically. Like there's nothing standing in your way with this. And I don't know why this is an issue for you. And that's something that I've really had to overcome and just own myself, own my body, own me on video, own me in photos, because now I have to do videos all the time and interviews all the time. And I just really have to step out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. And I will say that just to further support what you're saying is why it's important for you to own that and tell your story is as I was listening to you just now, you were telling my story and I 100%, I mean, I was like, starting to cry. I'm like, I got to pull it together because that's exactly it. And I remember being a kid and I didn't get picked. There was these horrible childhood games like Red Rover where you just pick favorites. And I remember I was the last one picked out of all the girls on the playground. And I was so down in the dumps. And my mom said, I'm like, it's because I'm not pretty. And she said, you're very pretty. Of course you're pretty. And I'm like, Mom, you have to say that because you're my mom. Like it just, and that, I love that you shared that. And I want to, for the people watching, I want to explain to them, and I know I did this in the intro, but you're having to step up and be in all these photos and all these videos and everything, because you came out with a book. So I want you to talk about the book and then everything that's surrounding it to promote the book and to get your message out there, which is above and beyond your real estate business. It's your, there's several things going on here. So let's start with, the book. What's the book called?
It's called Finding Your Voice. And here's a copy of it. Wait, hold on.
Hey!
Awesome. You can find it on Amazon.com. And what I found in coaching women is that we have these backgrounds. We have these limiting beliefs created by different circumstances in our life, whether it was that we got married and left our hopes and dreams aside to take care of our family and our husband, or whether somebody told us in our background that we weren't good enough or we weren't enough as we were, whatever the case may be. A lot of women come to real estate thinking, well, I'm going to embark on a new career because I need something for myself. But all of this stuff is in the background, talking in the back of their head, telling them that they're not worthy of success, telling them they're not, just like me, like not worthy to be in front of people. Whatever the story is that they're telling in their head, we've got to break through it. And so because I kept having women come to me with all of these different things, I decided to write a book just for women. I actually got a vision. And I'm a woman of faith, and I got a vision about this book and doing women's workshops. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And literally the next day I woke up and the entire outline was downloaded into my head. And then from there, I would meet this amazing woman who would have this amazing story of triumph. And it would encourage me to write another chapter. And I would wake up the next morning at 4:30 in the morning and the whole chapter would be there. And literally, it took me an hour and a half to write a chapter because it was all in my head. And that's how the whole book came about. And it turned into this inspirational book for women to overcome their past, take ownership of their part, and move forward, understanding that they are enough just as they are.
Right,
So
right. Exactly. And you're walking that walk. It's giving me goosebumps just to hear all this, because it's just like when you finally align yourself with what your work is, it's like everything just starts showing up, and it's like, oh, here's the chapter. And like, it's just like, you're channeling that energy, and it's so cool. So, want to get into the specifics of like this talk and what specifically is showing up and has shown up and how you've overcome it, to help women who are struggling with the same thing, that have these great ideas and want to take their business to the next level, but realize it's their own thoughts that are holding them back. And it's
Right.
too painful to move forward, or, whatever garbage they've heard from their past. So, I love when we were talking a while back about doing this interview. We're like, well, what should we break down? And you're talking about how showing up and not using filters. And I'm like, God, yes, because I feel that this is so damaging, especially for young women who just show up and like and when you say filters, are you talking about lighting, or the ones that actually like morph your face? Like the ones, I mean, they're fun to play around with, but talk about that, please.
Well, here's the thing, and my publicist is always telling me you need to be approachable. So sometimes I'll even do videos where I have very minimal makeup on. And that's hard for women to do, right? Because we want to show our features, and I have a double chin and I have a rounder face. So to not, put in my shading is like, I don't want to. But the reality of it is, you need to be authentic. You need to be who you are. And these people eventually are going to see you in real life at some point, whether it's a photo that's snapped of you or whatever else. You need to look like yourself. So there's all these tools out there to make your eyes bigger, make them more blue or brown, like make your lips more plump, all of these different things. Don't use that stuff. Just be you, and be okay with you just as you are.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
I love it. I love it because when you're able to speak your truth when you are showing up as you, and it's so much easier to do, right? Like for me, I've always said, like, when I go and I do videos, I try my hardest not even to look at my image, because as soon as I see myself, I'm fixing my hair or I'm changing something, and that's not what's connecting people to me. Has nothing to do with it. It's me just being real. And let's talk about the podcast that you've recently launched. And this is all about sharing perspectives, right, between men and women, and how the differences between how women look at, is it primarily business or is it life? Talk about that podcast, please.
It's all life. It's called The Female Male Perspective. It is syndicated out on all podcast audio stations now, as well as we're on Facebook and LinkedIn and a couple of different media, I guess, whatever you call them. So I guess media platforms. And I have a co-host. His name is Eddie Cunningham, and I chose a man that I felt was very diplomatic about women. He was not a woman hater in any way and tries to understand everybody's perspective. And I am not a man hater. And so when we go in and we talk about life topics, we just did an episode the other day talking about divorce and parenting and how to be a good parent through divorce. And real life topics that I want to hear a man's perspective as well as a woman's perspective in these different things. We also did a podcast recently on abuse. Is it really happening, or am I crazy? And what does abuse look like in relationships? And it's great to have a man's perspective in that. It really is, because they see things differently than we do.
So you're talking about abuse, all kinds of abuse, mental, physical. Okay.
Mental, physical, and sexual, whatever the case may be. And in that episode, we actually both talk about the abuses we endured as children and how that puts into perspective the people you choose in your life moving forward and how to break those chains.
Yeah, those are heavy topics for sure. So where are you seeing the differences in your conversations with Eddie, where there's a clear divide between what your perspective on things and the way, because obviously I'm assuming the goal is to I know you're not a male hater, but you're taking that position of the female perspective. So you're, I'm assuming, saying things that are more in alignment with how women generally feel. And then he's representing the guys. So what is that divide where you're like, whoa, there's a definite like difference of opinion here?
We haven't had a lot of difference of opinion yet. However, we have some future episodes where I can see us start to clash a little bit.
Ooh, fun.
Yes, we're actually going to go into a dating series where we're going to talk about online dating, profiles, different things, how to really get yourself out there. And I can foresee that we have some different ideas between men and women in dating and other things. We also don't hold back as far as intimacy and talking about that topic and what men want and what women want. And I can see us clashing in some of those areas as well, because women see things differently. We hear things differently. And even in communication, our thought processes are different. Not to mention, we all have triggers and all of these different things that come up that create clashes in our relationships.
Right. Yeah. Now I'm thinking back to a conversation I just had with my husband this morning. He was like, we were having, so I won't get into the details, but I said something, which was, I was owning something. I'm like, I'm owning, this is how I have been. And he's like, can I just say, and I'm like, hang on, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, yeah, you have been like that. And I'm just like, I'm trying to take it away from him. It's exactly what he was going to say. But it was like, I knew that he was going to trigger me. And I'm like, dude, that's my issue. Like, I need to get over that and just let him talk. Mm-hmm. But what do you see in terms of business? How are men just performing better than women in terms of what we were talking about earlier about all the things that you were seeing in your real estate group that women are presenting with? And I don't know, I've got all this baggage I'm bringing to my new business now, and I'm going to rock it in this business, but I'm not going to deal with all that baggage back here. And so what do you see?
Men seem to be able to compartmentalize a little bit better. Okay. They don't always have those talks in their head going on behind the scenes. The other thing with men is they can just throw on a baseball cap. They can slightly fix their hair, throw on a t-shirt, and they're on screen. They're not as critical of themselves on screen, at least most men. There are some men that are, but most men can just step into the limelight with no problem and be like, okay, take my picture. Okay, let's shoot a video. Women are so much more critical of ourselves. That's what stops us from moving forward, whereas men can just do it.
Yeah.
They just put their mind to it. They just do it.
Exactly. And yeah, we are definitely, for those of you watching, we're definitely talking in generalities here. There's definitely outliers where there's some men who are very critical about how they're showing up on camera. And then there's women who are like, I don't care. No makeup, hair in a bun. It's all messy. Go. I'm going with it. And that's awesome. Go, you ladies. And for those men that struggle with these major issues that as women, the majority of us are struggling with, how can we overcome that? Like, how have you overcome that when you're feeling like, okay, I'm not showing up so good on camera? Is there a self-talk that you practice? Is there something that kind of puts you in that place? Or is it just throwing yourself into it and then feeling it out?
I tend to be one that throws myself into it. I'm just like, okay, this is what I have to do, so we're going to do it. Period. And we do a couple of little test runs to make sure my angles are right and blah, 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 but not a lot. I also don't like to be scripted. I hate to be scripted. So if you're a person out there that's trying to do video and you think that you have to have a script of what you're going to say, you don't. Just roll with it. Be you in your personality and everything. And that was one thing that I had to kind of accept a couple of years ago, was that I do better without a script. So know yourself, know that about you. You don't have to memorize anything. You don't want to sound like a robot. And I think for me, I just had to jump in. This year, everybody was like, okay, you need to do videos reading the book. You need to do videos talking about different topics, and understanding it's okay to fumble. It's okay to make a mistake here and there or not be able to catch your word. It shows your humanity, and we're not looking for perfection. We want real people.
Absolutely. Amen. Amen. Absolutely. Because I think that when you are so just grounded in your message and the value that you want to provide to the people listening, reading, whatever, watching that's what carries you through it. And you're going to stumble, and your hair's going to be a mess. Something's going to, right at the beginning of this, as we came on in the studio, Tina, like I can't hear, you can hear me. I can't, or no, the other way around. I can hear you. You can't hear me. We're like, what? Right. Of all the times we've done live and showing up, like, why are we still having these issues? Things are always, something is always going to go wrong. And it's just about like rolling with it. And as long as you're grounded in who you are, and you're not putting on a face, and you're not all poised and reading a script and trying to sound perfect and look perfect, it'll carry you through it. I feel like for me, I just need to schedule things. And that takes the overwhelm can still be there. But when you just start scheduling, like you have a publicist who's like, all right, you're going to do this now. Now you're going to go on TV. I saw your TV interview. It's like, man, like you're being thrown into the fire. Like, go, Tina. And so like, is that pretty much what's showing up for you? Is like, okay, it's what's on my schedule today. Okay, I'm doing this.
And I don't think about it ahead of time.
Good.
Okay. I don't rehearse. I don't think about it. I go to bed at night. I'm not even looking at my schedule for the next day other than what time I need to get up. And then wherever I have to be, they just tell me where I need to be and I'm there and we just roll. As a matter of fact, on that news interview, we had no idea what she was going to ask. None.
Really?
No.
I would think that normally you're totally like not scripted, but you usually have like speaking points. You didn't.
No, they asked for a couple of topics about what the book was about, but they didn't even ask questions that I sent them. They completely went into research about me and asked completely off. Like we were like, okay, we're just rolling with it. And you got to be able to think really, really quick, right? And not skip a beat. And so before the interview, Katie's sitting next to me and Katie's my publicist and she's sitting there and she's like, are you nervous? Like, are you good? And I'm like, it's just another interview at this point. I don't know. Like, I'm not freaking out. You don't think about how many viewers there are going to be. You don't think, even when I walk on stage, you don't think about how many people are going to be in the audience. It doesn't matter. It's you. You're up there by yourself. The rest of them don't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're speaking about you and your message. And so why would you need to be prepared? I mean, it takes when you're over preparing, like the night before, oh my gosh, I got to get these answers down and exactly what I want to say in these stories and that, then something like that shows up where the interviewer does not even ask you those questions. That can throw you for a loop and just add a lot of stress and anxiety that no one needs in their life. Right. I remember watching an interview or a masterclass or something of Diane Sawyer, and her big thing was just show up curious. And when you just show up curious, and I maybe from the interviewer perspective, but in having a conversation with someone, it's just be in the moment, and you never know. Sometimes you just don't know what's going to come up and what you're going to talk about, but.
I love that. I love that surprise. I love that aspect of you don't know what you're walking through. Anything can be asked and you can respond in any way that comes up in your head. And that makes it so much more interesting.
Right.
It really does. I mean, even when I used to do videos for real estate and stuff like that, like I'm at this house and whatever, I never rehearsed what I was going to say first. I just went into it. Like, let's just show the house. Like, let's do this. And my team, actually, the whole team has to do videos at their open houses every week to show themselves and the house and everything where they're at to invite people to come. And at first they were super nervous about it, especially my seniors on the team were like, I have to do a video. Are you sure? I don't like myself on video. And I'm like, you're going to be fine. You're beautiful as you are. Just do the video. It doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
Just shoot it.
Because the thing is, when someone shows up at that open house and you are speaking with them, does how you look really matter? I mean, obviously you want to look professional and presentable, but that doesn't matter. It's the information that matters and providing that value. And that's something that's what shows up when you're on video. One of the last parts I wanted to touch on here is the whole thing about encouraging women, and which is what you are doing here. And this is your mission right now with the book and the podcast. And I mean, the podcast, obviously for men too. What are your thoughts on what women should be doing and ways that we can help empower other women?
I think that we need to be encouraging to each other and not critical. I hear a lot of times like, oh yeah, that person's always online and they have selfies of themselves and whatever. People ask opinions about which headshot should I use? And then people are critical about that. Stop being critical. People sometimes need other people's opinions. Sometimes we don't know. We're being overcritical when we're looking at our photos. So we're actually asking a real opinion about which one do you like better? Because when we see it, we see all of our flaws. When other people see it, they're like, oh, wow, that's an amazing photo. So stop being critical of each other, just uplift each other. And when you hear that somebody has made a huge accomplishment, congratulate them on it, push them to move forward, and just be a resource for each other, network with each other, put other women out there because it will come back to you 10 times fold.
Right. Yeah. And about the photo, I thought that was interesting. You said that about the photos and getting opinions on it, because we have our filters of what we're seeing in the photo and all of our flaws and everything. And it reminded me of, I started at a real estate brokerage and they did their headshots of all the agents. And I was showing the one that I picked to my mom and my sister and getting their opinion on it. Cause I wasn't giving them options. I just said, what do you think about this photo? I really love it. And they both, I was so mad because they both said, it doesn't look like you. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, it totally looks like me. And looking back at the photo, I think it was photoshopped. I think that there were things that were done to the photo so slightly that I thought, man, that is a great photo. And I couldn't believe that my family, who knows me so well, they're like, no. And they're really like, I've never had that kind of reaction before. Normally they're like, oh, it's a good photo, but they were both against it. And I was so mad because back then it was like, I just had to have this like perfect headshot so everyone can understand who I am. This is so stupid. It's like ridiculous. And then when you take the pressure off yourself and just pick something that people think that really shows you and your power and just go with it and don't worry. And I love this quote by Andy Warhol. And he said, when you put art out there, and that can be in the form of, podcast, a video, and I mean, not in his context, but anything, it's art, it's it's creativity. When you put something out there and people, stand around and they put their opinions in about this and that, go ahead and make even more art, because one piece does not define you. And it's just, okay, so there's a photo. I don't really care about that photo. I'll make another photo. I'll do another video. I'll do something else, because we are so much more dynamic than one piece of art. So,
well, and I have to say this, I just posted an episode of our podcast with Eddie and I, and my face on the front page is like, my assistant Mariah asked me yesterday, she was like, do I need to put a thumbnail on that? And I'm like, no.
Nice. Yes.
I'm like, I hate the initial shot, but I'm going to roll with it, because you know what? You can't tell in that initial shot whether I'm yelling at somebody or whether I'm angry or whatever. And it's kind of a teaser to get people to click. So even though I look really ugly in that front shot, we're just going to roll with it.
Yeah. It's one of the many faces of Tina. Like, I mean, it's just like, it's showing your personality, it's showing your vulnerability and your courage. I mean, to do something like that and be like, I don't care. I'm going to own it. And no matter what you think about it, people will look at it and think, whoa, she put that picture out. Okay. She's pretty bold. She's pretty real. And that's what attracts people to you. And that's your authenticity. That's awesome. I want to see this photo.
When you look at that podcast episode, I posted it again yesterday. My face is literally like,
I'll find it. I'll do a screenshot and throw it in the comments below. I also will throw in the links to your book, your podcast, but I want to give you an opportunity as we're wrapping here to tell people how they can find you and anything you want to plug. Go for it, Tina.
Sure. So you can reach me at tina@tinavaliant.com. That is my email address. You can also find out what workshops we have coming up, because we do a lot of real estate workshops that are 2-day workshops. And I actually have one that is how to build a real estate team coming up soon at the end of June, as well as we have some women's workshops coming up. So go to tinavaliant.com on our calendar to look for those upcoming events that we're all very excited about, as well as you can find me on Facebook, and you can also find the book on Facebook. It's called Book in Quotations, Finding Your Voice.
Okay.
So
awesome. And we'll throw those links here for just to make it easier for you guys to find all that stuff. And before we wrap it, I just want to go over the comments that are showing up here. Someone says, good morning. Good morning to you. And I'm sorry, I'm just seeing Facebook user because it's on StreamYard, but it says, let's just say, quote, that look went out in the 60s with Twiggy. And that was referring to what Tina was saying earlier about like just being so skinny and how that's the look. And that was the measure that she was using to hold herself to. Yeah, totally done with that look.
Right.
Christina writes, your on-camera presence is wonderful. Your energy and enthusiasm really comes through the lens. Nice.
Right.
And someone else, love that. Stop being critical is huge. Absolutely. So Tina, thank you so much for being here and for your powerful words. And ladies, thanks for watching. If you're watching on the replay, let us know at the #replay. And any questions for Tina, please put them in the comments below. Reach out to her. She's amazing. And that is it. I'm all done here. So thanks, guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.